Hello and welcome to the Footy Mailbag. My name is Damo, and here with me, as usual, is Clarky. How are you, my friend?
Hello, I live. Rumors of my death, no, non-existent because people don't know who I am. Damo, I've seen you've been very famous in Supercoach this week, in a lot of Supercoach circles.
Have I?
You, my friend, are you know what? Someone who I hope to get on the show, and I hope that they're listening. Rookie Coach AFL, the Supercoach creator. I want to shout out. Did a Supercoach content creators Supercoach team, and you were featured in it, my friend, and a lot of really wonderful, fantastic friends of the show and hopefully future friends of the show were in that list. It was very lovely to see.
Yeah, and he put me in defense at 488k, so hopefully the coach puts me in a good position and I can break into the top 8 defenders this season.
To be fair, Damo, he must have listened to the show because you're constantly on the defense from my absolute insanity. Someone's got to stop some of them before they hit their own goal, right?
I wasn't quite sure what you were talking about because I was also called up at the last minute to feature on the Nazaya Wanganeen Malera episode of the Coaches Panel Top 50.
Oh, I'm not there. I'm catching up on the 50 most relevant from our good friends at the Coaches Panel. You've been on quite a few episodes now.
Yeah, so I was on Jordan Clark. That was pre-planned. And then he messages me with about an hour's notice or a couple of hours' notice asking if I can step in for someone just the weekend gone. And I had time and was happy to do a little bit of research to make the episode work for him. So
That's
happy
wonderful.
to step in for MJ. And hopefully we can get him on the podcast at some point this season.
That would be fantastic. And if you are not already listeners, when you're done with our show, go listen to the 50 most relevant. What are you doing? It's one of the best Preseason Supercoach podcasts going around because it covers multiple platforms, and MJ does one of my favorite things, which is start conversations. It's not about telling you the right answer. It's about asking the questions and knowing the questions that you have to answer about your team. How's your week been otherwise, Damo? How's your team looking? We're, 2 weeks away from football now?
I don't think I could be any more confused about the ruck line. I was watching the State of Origin game.
Very good.
And that was played with the new rules. And it was hard to take anything out of it because each team had about 3 ruckmen, so they didn't all look dominant at any point. But what I got out of it was once the ball hits the ground, it's the midfielders that are going to be taking over the show. And
I swear I saw Luke Jackson like twice for that whole game.
Yeah.
He had like 70% time on ground or something like that.
Yeah, Luke Jackson didn't play as a ruckman, though. He played as a midfielder. So I was watching Jeff White, former Melbourne and Fremantle ruckman, has a great channel on YouTube, First Use. He went through Darcy Cameron's work during the Origin game, and it looks like Darcy Cameron might actually be a sneaky option for us in Supercoach.
You know what? I'm glad you mentioned it because he was the guy that stood out. Like when we talk about the eye test, I really noticed the work that he was doing against a lot of the other ruckmen. And I hated that because we've spent a lot of time talking about how Darcy Cameron probably isn't someone we want for our starting lineups, but I'm beginning to renege.
I don't mind the Darcy Cameron pick, but after owning him last season, I still can't get over the fact that most weeks he didn't show that he had the ceiling that the other ones did. So he might be a fine ruckman to pick, and he might really suit these new rules, who knows? But I just couldn't get over the fact that when Gawn was doing a 160, Darcy Cameron was doing a 110. Like, Cherry was doing a 140, Darcy Cameron was doing a 105, like that sort of thing. Like, it was almost week on week that I was missing out on those extra points that these more dominant, more impactful ruckmen that around the ground especially were getting. So, yeah, like, I think he's a good pick. I just don't know if he's a dominant pick.
Yeah, I think it's hard to ignore someone who catches your eye like that. And while we shouldn't be using State of Origin as an absolute measure of guys who we want in our team, like, you know, when the Vics are playing with a midfield of, you know, Cornelio, Bond, Gawn, Sherry, like, Butters, it's a never-ending list of A-listers who are just rotating through constantly. What did you make of the game itself, though, Damo? I found myself really rooting for the WA team.
I thought that once the ball was out of the center, it was a fairly even match, but Victoria definitely had the more dominant midfield.
Yeah, I think they forced a lot. That experience forced a lot of errors from the WA team as well, is what I noticed. But it was very much the little guys in the Black Swan against the big snobby Vics. It's the most I've ever felt like I'm yeah, you know what? Fuck Vic Bias. Cuss Vic Bias.
I will say this though, the WAFC, the West Australian Football Commission, have been kind of arguing with the AFL that them pulling funding from the WA talent pathways and putting it into the likes of Queensland, New South Wales and Tasmania for a few years, the WAFC have been arguing that it's diminished some pathways, some talent in the WA system, and it's meant that not a lot of players are getting drafted from Western Australia. And I wonder if the way that, they struggled to pick a team really for WA. They gave games to guys like Will Powell and Jager O'Meara, who are pretty good players, but they weren't the same caliber as the guys being picked for Victoria. And I wonder if there might be a little more of a concession to the WAFC that maybe they have pulled out too much funding.
Well, I looked into it, right? Because I was obviously alive during the last State of Origin series because it finished in 99 and I'm an old man now. But when I looked into the history of it, having never really watched it growing up, it really was started by WA to kind of point out that the talent exists in WA and therefore so should the investment be in WA football. And I think for that purpose, regardless of the result, I really loved seeing almost like an unknown WA team. We know we know who these players are. They're just, like you said, we'll refer back to the tier list. They're not in the upper echelon tiers, but they're still good footballers who would probably be in this, B through D tiers. But I thought it was such a good showing for WA football, seeing Cozzy Pickett out there with Patrick Cripps, but also working alongside guys like Barras, who high profile, yes, but not high profile in terms of popularity. It's really invigorating, I think, when everything was going right and everything was free flowing. Jake Waterman popped himself up again, and I was like, I forgot that he existed for a bit. And I think if Shea Bolton could kick a bit straighter, that game would have been so exciting and such a spectacle, even though it was already a spectacle in itself. What was your takeaway with the new rules, though? Did you notice that they were being implemented as much as we thought we would, or?
All the around the ground stuff I didn't really notice. The not nominating ruckmans or waiting for the nominated ruckmans, I did not notice. And to be honest, in the practice matches that have started, I'm still not noticing it. It just means they're not waiting for them to cross the ground or anything. They're only going to throw it up to the people in the vicinity. But I didn't really see much of a change there, so I'm not worried about that anymore. I'm not really worried about last touch out of bounds. That was few and far between, and also made a lot of sense when it did happen. So It's almost like it was happening already anyway, with the insufficient intent stuff being handed out towards the end of last season. So I'm not so worried about that anymore either. It's more the ruck rules that stood out to me. But even then, once the ball was thrown up, it was just every man for himself, like it usually is. It's more the ruck rules that I think we're going to have the most impact from. But I didn't get anything out of this game because there was so many ruckmen and so many rotations. I need to see all these ruckmen in their teams, in their systems, to see how they manage the ruck rules as they are with their own game plans. Yeah,
I'm not sure that there's anything to really even react to get to overreacting. I think it felt like the game was feeling very unrestricted, which I suppose is what they wanted. I didn't really notice as much stoppage. And I think maybe not noticing the new rules being implemented is objectively outside of Supercoach. That's the ideal situation, isn't it, really? They've got these new rules that make the game more efficient that we don't notice. We're not going oh my God, when the stand rule was implemented, right? That changed the course and flow of the game. But I'm really interested to see some more practice match stuff, but I'm really interested to also see some more intra-club stuff. I don't think we'll really know until, round 5 of the season. And even then.
It's going to be something where you've got to probably be prepared to part with at least one of your ruckmen to adjust for the new rules this season in Supercoach, because you're either going to start with someone too expensive or start with someone that isn't expensive enough. So, yeah.
Yeah, we need to find which of the ruckmen are like one of the 4 good ruckmen, as seems to be the case every year. Damo, I want to talk a little bit about my week in Supercoach, because I came to a realization today. I commute into Melbourne for work, so I end up with a little bit of time on the train where I listen to podcasts, I listen to music. I've recently had a hankering to go back and revisit some of Frank Zappa's older work, which has been nice and experimental on my train rides. That got me experimenting with my Supercoach team. And I came to this realization. I'm overreacting. I'm overthinking it. I've sent you like 4 different versions of my team in the past 2 weeks. But I'm overthinking it. I'm locking myself in too much to, I can't pick this guy because I don't like him, because you remember how I like to be the vibes guy, right? Like I understand how stats work and I understand their value, but I like to be the vibes guy because it's more fun. Being too much of a vibes guy, realizing, has been kind of a double-edged sword for me, and I've kind of been locking myself out of certain players. So I redid my team, and I redid my team with the idea of just pick the obvious guy. Like, don't spend time trying to be fancy, just pick the obvious guy. And you know what? Like, it really shook out a few things about my team that I'm really feeling a lot more comfortable with it. And specifically, Marcus Bontempelli and Nasai Wanganimala are both in my team now, despite their extreme expense. And I wanted to make this call out to the listeners, right? Sometimes you're overthinking it and you need to just go back to basics and pick the obvious guys. Don't worry about getting fancy. Don't worry too much about making sure you squeeze every bit of value. Because what's most important is that you pick the guys who you know are going to be good, instead of worrying about playing mind games to go up ranks in 10 rounds. That's my public service announcement, Damon. This is like, am I on the right track here? Like, do you think, am I onto something?
You definitely
the Bradley Cooper part of my brain.
You definitely got to pick the guys that make the most sense to you, and the guys that, like, don't talk yourself out of a guy that you've talked yourself into, because, I mean, most people can do that anyway with any player, but just, you don't have to overthink it. You don't have to compare your team to someone else's team, because everyone's got different mindsets when they build their team. So, yeah, pick. So I think there's merit to what you're saying in that you just got to pick the players that make the most sense to you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Supercoach added the injury symbols this week, and everyone lost their mind, collective minds. Public service announcement, don't overreact to the injury symbols. Half of them are wrong, half of them don't have the correct timelines. I think they are just there so that they can be added and edited when they need to be. Like, for example, Todd Marshall has dropped out of 10% of teams because of the injury symbol. He's not injured, guys. It's just an old symbol that they haven't updated yet. I'm sure closer to the season we will see the correct injury symbols and the correct suspension symbols as they are needed. So just build your team, forget what the symbols say, and yeah, don't overreact.
Yeah, contrary to what I just said, overreact. Injury symbols are bad. You don't want a single one of them in your team.
Don't confuse the listeners.
Don't confuse the listeners. Sullivan Roby, he's got a back injury and he's subject to a fitness test. Damo, what am I going to do? No, but this is called the, Damo, I can already hear the episode title, Don't Overreact. Which we're using that one early this year. Yeah. But it's also a pre-warning. There's 3 circumstances in which you don't want to overreact. 1, don't overreact and pick your team trying to be too tricky. Pick players that you like, pick players that are obvious to you, and use the research that you've done by listening to our wonderful show and probably many other wonderful content creators to pick a team that you're happy with. Number 2, don't overreact to the injury symbols. wait until it's still a few weeks, right? There's still a few weeks. Even if there's an injury symbol now, that could be gone by next week. No worries. There's a third situation where we don't want to overreact, Damo.
Yes. The practice matches have started. There are players missing from all of these practice matches because they played in State of Origin. I'm seeing all these people putting all these wonderful notes together, and it's great to see, it's great to read through, but what I don't like is hearing or seeing the, if you don't have this player, just delete your team reactions. And I'm seeing it a lot over the last few days with certain players, and I just don't like people overreacting to one game, especially in a preseason where the game doesn't mean a lot. Christian Petrarca's having a great game for the Suns as we record this against St Kilda in the practice match. He is dominating, but they also don't have Matt Rowell or Noah Anderson or Tuke Miller or any of those guys playing. So don't overreact to what Christian Petrarca's doing because he's in a midfield by himself.
Can you say it one more time, Damon, just so the listeners have it locked in?
Don't overreact to players' performances in the practice matches.
Don't underreact as well, though. Some performances are stinky. This one is not. Look at the context. Always look at the context.
Now, we haven't even gotten to the biggest news of the week so far.
There's big news.
Tom Green ruptured his ACL and is going to miss the entire season.
Disgusting. To quote my good close friend Patch, ban injuries, AFL, you cowards. Ban them. Why haven't you banned them yet? You're lacking in this department.
Not only that, Clarkey, Finn Callahan has a hip flexor injury, I believe, and he is in doubt for opening round.
This is the worst thing to ever happen, Dave, to football.
So I'll tell you who's come into my team off the back of both of these injuries.
Yep.
He's sitting at 321k. He's a midfielder. Stephen Cornelio has had a full preseason for the first time in about 3 years. He looked very good in the State of Origin game. That's the only thing I got out of the State of Origin game. The fact that Stephen Cornelio looks back. I didn't get anything else out of it, but the fact that he looks back and he's had a fit full preseason, he has come into my side. Someone's going to have to benefit from these players getting injured and not able to play. And I think it's going to be Stephen Cornelio and Clayton Oliver also as well.
You're going to put both of them in your team?
No, I don't know Clayton Oliver, but Stephen Cornelio is the one that's in my team. And I think it's Cornelio and Oliver season at the Giants.
Do you really think Cornelio is going to deliver a ceiling good enough?
At 321k, if he can get to 500k, he's done his job.
Okay. Yep. Okay. You know what? I respect that, Damo. I just think there's a little bit of State of Origin hype behind it, but circumstance, you're right, is.
But
I'm
not picking Cornelio. One thing I noticed in State of Origin was that Cornelio was fit and looked good. But the reason I'm picking him is not because of State of Origin. It's because these injuries at the Giants have opened up a midfield spot.
I mean, if he didn't look good at State of Origin, you probably wouldn't have picked him. True. Got him, listeners. You heard it. Snookered him. No, I understand what you're saying. It's just tough. It's tough for me to think back to him because is Josh Kelly fit? Is he alive?
Josh Kelly is out for the season as well.
Yeah, okay, I thought so. So literally every backup midfielder is dead. You might be onto something here. Clayton Oliver's suddenly very interesting as my pick probably of the potential leaders of that midfield without Callahan and without Green. Does this have any impact for any of their young rookie players? I
mean, Callahan's due to be back round 1, 2, or 3, like that sort, like early rounds. So we don't need to overreact for him too much. He's going to be an upgrade target at some point for most people.
We hit our quota. We can't use that word anymore. We have to pay Overreact Industries if we say it anymore.
But there's a couple of guys. So James Leake, yes. We jumped on him last season when Tom Green was also injured, coincidentally. And he's able to be selected again at rookie price, a slightly elevated rookie price, but still rookie price. He's someone that we could look at. And they recently extended one of their draftees, Jack Hour. It's spelt Jack off, basically. but it's Jack Hour, confirmed by a random TikTok I found where Jesse Hogan answers a question. But
Can sorry, I need to pause and I have the utmost respect, knowing you, Damo, as well. The utmost respect to just call it as we're all thinking it.
Yeah.
Call it as we're all thinking it. Listeners, it's spelled Ough.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's cough without the C, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, it's not pronounced that way, but Damo, I respect you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
But yeah, so he's
Do we think
big...
Brent Daniels, sorry, just while I'm thinking out loud, Brent Daniels is fit? He played through the mid a little bit.
He is. Every time I've picked Brent Daniels, he's gotten injured like 2 weeks later, though, so I think I'm banned from picking Brent Daniels.
Yeah, please don't. I own him in a keeper league, in multiple keeper leagues. Don't do that. But yeah, I think there's some interesting names, but I suppose Canelio doesn't move from that team once Callahan is back and once they figure out what's happening around him and Oliver. That's probably the other benefit of picking him at that price. So I agree with you that I think that's probably the safest, not safest, but like the most likely scenario, unless leak or off, pretty good.
Yeah. Very good. Couple things to plug now. Listeners, if you want to join the Mailbag Masters, we have 10 spots left. DM us, email us, comment on any of the Mailbag Masters posts across our social media pages. All we need is your last 3 overall finishes. Why do we need this? Well, we're trying to create a top 10 overall league. Also, remember, we'll be updating our website with all the Supercoach relevancy out of the Community Series games as they happen. That article will kick off on the 25th with the first official game and then continue to be updated right across the series. Shall we answer some questions, Clarky?
Yeah, let's do it. I'm excited.
First one comes from Josh. What a great name, hey, Clarky.
That's all right.
By watching the Origin game, do you think the ruck rules are really going to affect them as much as everyone thinks? Well, we kind of covered this, didn't we? It was hard to work out if it's going to affect them as much as everyone thinks because there was about 3 rucks in each team.
Yeah, having seen them, I think that it doesn't. If my call now, if I reach into my crystal ball of the future, is that it's not going to affect them nearly as much as we think. I think we kind of catastrophize this idea because it maybe does displace rucks as being the ever-filling well of triple-figure scores, but I don't think that means that we should talk ourselves out of the rucks that we know are good. You know, I think Tristan Sherry is still a very good ruckman, and they still get points for positive ruck contests. So maybe we're not spending max capital on them, but if you're basing your team around that, I think we have a lot of license to go, right, I'm going to go with a premium, and then I'm going to find someone who's kind of a little bit more of a, you know, a bit of a mixture of an out-and-out ruckman and an athlete, right? Like a bit of a midfielder, someone who's more likely to get some of that extra roving and some of that extra work done around the ground to make up that score that they would lose from the reduction of ruck contests if that eventuates.
Yeah, I to be honest, even watching the practice matches, the very few that have happened so far, I'm still not really getting much out of the ruck contests other than it's very quick out of the middle now. So there's not a lot of ruckman. There's not a lot of redoing the bounce or redoing the stoppage. Sorry, there's not the bounce anymore. Redoing the stoppage or anything like that. So it's very quick out of the center. That's probably the main thing that I got out of the State of Origin game without really looking, because it was an exhibition match with ridiculous teams and managed game time for everyone. So I got a little bit, but I didn't get much out of it to really know if it's going to affect them as much as everyone thinks.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I hope that's ambiguous but helpful.
Matthew wants to know, there's some bad injury news at the Giants. Who lines up in the midfield for them in round 1? Again, something we probably just recently covered with the Tom Green news. Oliver, assuming he's fit and firing for opening round or round one. Canelio, and then Bedford's also injured, so that's another one. Could it be Xavier O'Halloran? Could it be Harvey Thomas? Could it be Toby McMullen? Someone like that? Who knows? They're not as hamstrung for options as we think they are. But it's just we don't know these players' names because they haven't really made a name for themselves yet.
Yeah, it's the perfect time for one of them to step forward.
Rowe wants to know, is it better to go for Young or Fraser and Coleman, so one of Young or Fraser with Coleman, or a Primo and a rookie? Well, it depends on the Primo and the rookie, really. What sort of score are you expecting to get out of Fraser? What sort of score are you expecting to get out of Young, whichever one you go for there? And then what are you expecting from Coleman at the Lions? Does that together outweigh what you're expecting from the Primo and the rookie? It's difficult without seeing the rest of your team, but I think on the surface, a Primo and a rookie usually goes better, but you've picked some good names out of Young, Fraser and Coleman to, give us the question about. Clarkie, where do you stand on this?
I think... Sorry, my brain is just turning over. I'm with you on the premium and a rookie. Like, go for the known quantity. Objectively, as you said, outside of context of your entire team, that also reduces your risk of, if you get Young and he fizzles, or you get Fraser and he fizzles, you're not locked into then trying to find a replacement that's around that price point. Like if you go for a premium and a green dot rookie.
Yep.
Reduce your risk where you can.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think the answer here is a Primo and a rookie.
Yes.
And who's a good Callahan replacement?
How much is Finn Callahan?
He is about
650?
605.
605?
Do you want to know who is a great replacement for Finn Callahan? He also has the early buy, but I think you'll get pretty similar results this season from him, and that's Max Holmes.
You said the name before I could, Damo, you beautiful man. I love Max Holmes. I think you should pick Max Holmes. However, there's a lot of really good play. There's a lot of really good players around that price point. Don't be afraid to just pick the one that you like. How much is Ed Richards? 650?
Ed Richards is 602.
602.
I'm way
overvaluing these guys. I like Ed Richards at 602.
I also like Isaac Heaney at 593.
That's juicy as heck.
And
Isaac Heaney looks really good despite his controversial off-field stuff.
And if you want to save a bit of money and go for some cheaper guys, Will Ashcroft is looking good this preseason. And Sam Walsh is another one. I'm not going to pick Sam Walsh. I've been burned too many times. But there are people very impressed with what Sam Walsh has been doing this preseason as well.
I think I need to see Sam Walsh against the proper opponent before I believe it. I know that he's got the ceiling, but I just want to make sure that the role is there. But I like the way you're thinking, Damo. I'm surprised you didn't mention Jack Steele as a little cheapy option with Melbourne's midfield basically being children, apart from Jack Steele.
I actually hadn't scrolled that far down the list yet. I was getting there.
So yeah, you're probably getting there. Jack Steele with Jai Cully is injured for a few weeks, so will probably make his debut for the Melbourne midfield. Probably just as 4.
Just as an aside, there's a name that I keep hovering over. I'm not saying he's a good Callahan replacement, but there's a name I keep hovering over because I feel like he's got it in him to be a top Supercoach midfielder at some point. It's Sam Durham from Essendon.
Okay, that's fine.
And I've looked at his scoring over the years, and he definitely has the ceiling. The problem is he also has a really bad floor. I feel like there's a really good Supercoach midfielder in there. He needs to become more consistent.
Have we spoken enough about the Essendon midfield in this preseason? I know that we don't really know what they're going to do, but I have some raps in my head around Zach Merritt and Jai Caldwell, not just Parrish. Parrish obviously being the most talked about because he's so attractively priced. He is a half off at the grocery store, kind of like well, I got to buy that even if I don't really want it.
Mm.
But Zach Merritt puts up some pretty decent numbers in his best form, and Jai Caldwell was getting it done last year.
Jai Caldwell, when fit, is really, really good. The only issue is he's not fit a lot of the time.
Well, not much of Essendon is fit.
True.
Demo. So I'm not gonna judge him just based on that.
I'm wary of Zach Merritt, especially if he continues in that bit part role that he was in for the second half of last season. I don't think he's in their best midfield as far as Brad Scott sees it anymore, but I don't know where he plays otherwise. In the State of Origin game, I know we're not supposed to get much out of it, he played almost exclusively as a forward.
Ugh. All right, scratch that. I like Jai Caldwell. For some reason, I don't know. Something about it feels good to me.
The next question comes from Benji.
Hey,
How
Benji.
many Vic mids is too many to start?
Ooh. How many you got?
Look, I'm going to be honest. After that State of Origin game, I was like, Clarky, when you said yourself, you decided to stop playing around with it and just doing what made sense and what was staring you in the face. What was staring me in the face after watching that game was I had to find room for Bontempelli.
Yeah.
I had to hold on to Butters. And I had to stop telling myself that I could pick up Nick Dacos later and just select Nick Dacos.
All the correct answers, Damo. I have 2 out of 3 of them because money.
Yep. For me,
I agree. I think those guys were just so even like there was some genuine intent in that game. Like it wasn't just like an exhibition match. They were really taking the rivalry quite seriously, and Butters, Bond, and and Dacos were just like you would have thought their Brownlow votes were on the line.
Yeah, they were taking the piss. Actually, do you want to know who's a good Callahan replacement if you don't have him in your team at the moment?
Nick Dacos.
Errol Goulden.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
He along with Jordan Clark and Luke Jackson were probably my first picked players.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. To answer your question, Benji, there's actually no amount of Vic mids that is the wrong number. Predominantly because a lot of teams are based in Victoria, so you don't really want to shut yourself out of so many options. But I think, if anything, after the Origin game, which I'm assuming this is when this was sent, there's no the limit is endless. You pick all them good mids. There's so many of them. I even grew some love for Patrick Cripps.
Some would argue you can't grow any more love for Patrick Cripps.
I do love Patrick Cripps. He seems like a nice guy. I would be devastated if something came out about Patrick Cripps doing some absolutely cooked shit. Like if Patrick Cripps Lockie Nealed at some point in the season, I would lose my mind because he is the chosen one. He just seems like a really nice guy.
To be honest, I think there would be Carlton supporters losing their mind over it as well. So
I feel so bad about every time I see Cripps. I'm like, okay, I need Carlton supporters to not take this personally, but I sometimes look at Patrick Cripps and I think you chose to stay with Carlton, and that's great. I appreciate and understand your choice for loyalty, but he could have been so successful in so many clubs. I reckon there is a world where he moved teams at some point and is like a premiership player.
Oh, that's a big call.
I think about that sometimes because I think there was a period, and he's still very good at football, but obviously, you age and new talent comes in, and it's a slow slide. But there was a point where he was at his peak, where obviously he's a Brownlow medalist, right? Like, he's got a peak that I'm like, you could have been a premiership player at a different club.
Yeah. Next question.
Now that I've angered the Carlton fans.
Next.
Love you, Carlton.
If you notice, I was moving on to
love you,
to not let
Pommy,
that
love you,
to not let that marinate.
Janeth, I'm sorry.
All right, moving on, Clarky. Chris has asked, would you pick all the cheapies who are selected in round 1 and then add your top players, or is this a bad play? That's actually the perfect play. Rookies determine structure. If you're too if you're too attached to the way your team is sitting at the moment, I'm just going to say don't be, because you don't know if the rookies are going to get picked. You don't know if the premiums are going to are going to be picked, or you'd hope the premiums are picked, but you don't know if your team is going to run out the way you hope. So once the round one teams come out, look for the green dots and see what you can find out about their job security, and then add in the premiums around them, because rookies determine structure ultimately. And this is why you play around with the team picker as much as possible, so you have different options for different scenarios.
I like that. I've never actually thought about that, Damo, because it kind of feels sometimes when you're messing with your team, it's a bit like I'm touching it too much, right? Like my palms are going to get hairy. But you're right. I think it's just kind of being prepared and understanding that your team structure can look different depending on a couple of different scenarios. The most difficult thing about selecting the rookies is that you end up with only a short amount of time really to lock in that side before round one. Like once we know all the green dots, and then taking into account the time of having to check the context of, well, James Leake has been named for GWS, but is he going to be there in 2 weeks when Callahan's back? Do they have another plan that works better around Finn Callahan compared to, say, name anyone like a Cooper Duff Tyler, right, at West Coast, who probably has an opportunity for more job security based on the role that he plays there, and because they're a team that's still finding their steps a little bit. So being prepared for multiple scenarios is the best thing that you can do, and picking as many of those rookies as you can so that you can maximize your cash generation.
Yeah. Just the main thing that I always remember is rookies determine structure. You have these players that you fall in love with when it comes to premiums, but you've also got to find other premiums that you also are really fond of that you can switch to if you need to free up cash, if you need to get the correct rookies in certain lines, all that sort of thing. And the added ability of flex means you can actually add in another player from a different position to make that player in your team to have that space. That's another added benefit of flex, not just the fact that it's the worst score that drops out.
Yeah, for sure. That's brilliant.
Clarky, I've got a question to ask you about your team.
Yeah,
and it's something that I've been sort of messing around with on my team as well. And with the fifth bench spot, and lots of clubs talking about using it to bring in a second ruckman or someone who can play in multiple positions. Where has that put your mind when it comes to your ruck line? Have you sort of settled on a ruck line yet that is probably not foolproof, but fairly safe for the first month or so until we know what it's going to do?
Yeah, essentially. I'm kind of trying to lock into tried and true players. Luke Jackson, we know, is a role player in that he is going to be a midfielder, essentially, but he has the ability to ruck. He has the ability to play forward. He's a known quantity. I think currently I think I sent you a copy of my team just earlier to illustrate my point of not overthinking it. That had DCAM in it because, like we spoke about, he's relatively affordable at his price, and he stood out for a reason of understanding he's at a price point that's manageable, and he is somebody who doesn't really have a lot of people coming for his job. Who's any other ruckman at Collingwood, especially now that they've gotten rid of Mason Cox, right? It's Oscar. Is it Steen?
Oscar Steen.
Oscar Steen is the only other ruckman I can think of at Collingwood.
There's some others, but I couldn't name them off the top of my head, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I think it's like a really important question for you to ask, Damo, and I thank you for asking.
The only reason I ask is because I was looking at some team reveals on Code Sports during the week, and believe it or not, John Ralph made a really good point that St Kilda has brought in Tom De Koning for a reason. So Tom De Koning's in John Ralph's team, and they're not going to use him in a secondary role like Carlton did. So it got me thinking about Tom De Koning in my team, and I've built a team I'm really fond of with Jackson and De Koning as my R1, R2. And I watched the first quarter of the practice match earlier between the Suns and St Kilda, and he actually looked really good. Even with Marshall sort of coming in for 20 to 25% of the ruck contests, Tom De Koning was actually resting across halfback kind of as a intercept sort of anchor type, while Marshall sort of rested as a key forward. And I just thought De Koning's ability to move around the ground and play that secondary role while also being that really athletic ruck in a similar vein to a Luke Jackson, I just really like, even though he's going to be sharing the ruck load, I think Tom De Koning at 524k might actually be priced perfectly for the output that he's going to give.
I really like those observations, and it's really important that we have seen how he looks in that system. It's funny when you break it down, really, and obviously John Ralph is a football expert, so it's very easy to just go like, oh, of course, what was I thinking? The Hammock District, of course. Like they brought him in for a reason. He's going to have that specific role. So I really like that selection for you, Damon. It's very well thought out. I think that's maybe something that we all need to take into account, right? Is just understanding, look at these guys, pick them, and understand that their role in the team is flexible and they have multiple scoring opportunities. That way we can really combat, like we spoke about a little bit earlier, the ruck rule changes, but also you can maximize the points for your dollar.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Hey, it's been a bit of a shorter episode, but that's it for this episode of the Footy Mailbag. Hey, Clark, I don't feel like I thank you enough. So, thanks for coming on this journey with me every season.
Damo, if anything, not to toot our own horn here on the mailbag, but this show literally would not happen without you because of my unorganized ass. Just pull back the gun, listeners. I'm late to almost every recording because I am unorganized and the father of a 1-year-old who is desperate to make sure he is a good father, so offers to do so as much as he physically can to help be a good parent. And Damo is very understanding of that, and he puts in a lot of work to get this show out and recorded every week. And that's where the real kudos belongs, guys. I'm just a voice and a guy who you might not be able to tell, but I'm laying on the floor because I have a sore back.
Clarky, I never care that you're late because I just remember that everyone can be a father, but you're being a dad.
That's really sweet. Put that on the shirt. That's going to be the shirt for March. the footy mailbag. Anyone can be a father, but you're a dad. Footy mailbag.
Anyway,
that's so beautiful. Thank you.
Anyway, if you haven't given us a rating on your listening platform of choice, please do so. It helps new listeners find us. We want to get into as many ear holes as possible this season. You can find us at Footy Mailbag on X and Facebook, at The Footy Mailbag on Instagram, and also thefootymailbag.net is our website. I am at DamoSC on Twitter, and Clarky, where can people find you?
You can find me at QuantumJC or over at the other show that I do, The Falcon. We're at Falcon Footy Pod on the social medias. We've recorded our first episode for 2026, and it was a real doozy. I had a lot of fun catching up with Chris and Cass, so make sure you go follow us so that you can get the new episode right in your ear holes.
Very good. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time.
Love you. Bye.